Katy Perry's known for being a firework, and now her legal battles are popping off too. The personal injury firm of Ashton Price has been keeping us up to date on the trending legal topics, and it gets more and more interesting every single time. Here to give us the latest scoop is attorney Craig Fontaine. Ashton, welcome back, Craig.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes. So, Craig, tell us what's going on with Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom and kind of their entangled lawsuit going on right now.
Right. So what happened is that in July of 2020, an individual who was 83 years old decided to sell his 9,000 square foot Montecito home to Orlando Bloom and Katy Perry. So it was on July 14th when the contract went through, but on July 11th, he had back surgery. And he's 83, he's frail, he's under the influence of opioids, but he's got Berkshire Hathaway representing him and Orlando Bloom and Katy Perry, so they're basically a dual agent. So ultimately, the sale goes through on the 14th. 8 days later, he writes a letter and says, hey, I didn't have capacity to enter into that contract because I was frail, I was recovering from back surgery, I was under the influence of opioids, so I want to back out of it. And Katy Perry said, you know what? My dog just died, and I have a new child coming, and so no thank you. So the contract is going to be enforceable. So now they just started trial 2 weeks ago in Santa Barbara County to determine whether or not this contract can be voided.
Okay, and you mentioned the 83-year-old Carl Westcott. How do you see this playing out in the legal battle?
So here's the thing. So he's got Berkshire Hathaway, right? So when you're older like that, especially when you're just coming out of back surgery, because as a personal injury lawyer, I know the outcome of this. It's a major undertaking where you're under general anesthesia, you're giving opioids, not necessarily as a result of the back pain, but because of the incision site. Because it's a very violent undertaking to enter the body to basically cure the lesions that have occurred in your spine. So that being said, he's probably under the influence of lots of opioids, which definitely are not performance-enhancing drugs mentally. Plus, he's got a history of Huntington's disease, and which is a brain disorder, and he's 83. So he's saying, hey, I just couldn't enter into this contract because I lacked the capacity at the time. The problem is because everything's in writing and Berkshire Hathaway was representing him, so he had an agent. It's very difficult for him to say, with all of that representation, everything being in writing, the time that it was reviewed by either attorneys or real estate professionals, that it was somehow unconscionable or he didn't have the capacity. But what he's trying to say to the court, look, they took advantage of me, I'm in my 80s, I want to get out of this deal.
Okay, and tell us, what's the details on the court document that's being used in Carl's defense against Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom?
So basically, the document really is just the contract. What really they're using is this medical information. So they're saying, hey, look, Your Honor, because this is a bench trial, it's not a jury trial, because what you want to do is keep away the jury falling in love and fawning over Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom, and also because the issues are relatively straightforward, boilerplate legal issues, not emotional issues. The judge has to determine whether or not, under these circumstances, this individual could not, as a matter of his mental capacity, enter into this agreement. Because the thing is, we have to have contracts that are enforceable. Otherwise, you buy a car and a week later say, I don't want the car. Or you buy a house, I don't want the house. Or you go and you buy a suit and say, I don't like the suit. So the thing is that we have to have a system that's founded on contracts that are reliable, otherwise it all falls apart. So that's what this judge has to determine here. 83 years old, under the influence of opioids, it's avoidable, or hey, you had a real estate agent, sorry, buyers beware, and remorse doesn't work in this case.
I'm glad I'm not that judge who has to make that decision.
Exactly.
And Craig, tell us, what is the Katy Perry Act?
So what they're trying to do, because Katy Perry in 2015 tried to buy a convent from the Catholic Church and some nuns. There was a question as to who owned the church. The 89-year-old nun showed up to court to basically make her case. She died. So ultimately, what they're trying to say in this case is if you're 75 and you're selling real property, you get a 3-day waiting period where you can cool off. And so what they're saying is that if you're over a certain age, there is an inference that perhaps you need some time to cool off so you don't get taken advantage of. That's what the Katy Perry Act is. The problem is that it will put people who are older at a disadvantage, because if you're going to buy this house for the 3-day waiting period, there's another one on the market. If you wait, you may lose that one, so you may buy the other one.
With your legal background, how do you foresee this all playing out for Katy Perry?
My feeling is Katy Perry is probably going to win based upon the fact that foundationally, because this individual had an agent who's represented by Berkshire Hathaway, they disclosed their conflict of interest, that the contract's probably going to be enforceable, based upon the fact that we have to have a foundational understanding that, hey, you may not have wanted to sell it later, but if you're represented, we have to have a system that you rely upon the contract, otherwise it all falls apart.
And lastly, how can older adults protect themselves if they find themselves kind of in a similar situation, maybe not with someone famous?
Get good representation. So you get yourself your own real estate agent who can describe everything to you before you enter into the agreements. because the statute of frauds requires that everything is in writing, and it is. And once it's in writing and it's real property, you have a lot of layers. And once you sign everything, typically it's going to be enforceable. So get good representation.
All right, you heard it from Craig. Craig, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
All righty. For more information, you can visit ashtonandprice.com/Sacramento.